This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by Marshwear Clothing, Aluma Trailers, Walton's, Onyx Hunt, Aberdeen, South Dakota, Compeer Home, GAIM Virtual Shooting Simulators, and by Hoksey Native Seeds. Today we continue our bird dog training series with Sonny Piekarz, George Lyall, and Jordan Wells. This will be the final episode. We're taking that puppy development, the bird dog obedience and development work, and bringing the dogs into the field. We will guide you through steps in the process to prepare your dog to hunt. We will discuss different fields and hunting scenarios that are right for you, building that prey drive, wild birds versus planted birds, fetch, whoa, and ultimately celebrating our success in the field. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I am Travis Frank. Big Al is our producer. Big Al, thank you so much for setting up this entire set here. We are at the Minnesota Horse and Hunt Club in one of their cabins. This cabin is available to rent, and it's also on the grounds where there is sporting clays. There's 5-stand courses, cosmic clays. That's one of the coolest things that I have done here. You can shoot at night. I brought my wife, and there was like 5 other couples, and we did basically the 5-stand, but you do it at night. It's so cool. Never seen anything else like it around here. I think it's the only one in Minnesota. This place has been around for 40 years. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary. They have places to bring your dog out, and you can work with birds. We're going to get into some of that today because we are on the third part of this now 4-week podcast series that we have been producing, and we've discussed puppy development. We've discussed the moment you bring that puppy home and different steps through the process. We've had dogs here, puppies. We've had George's 3-year-old as well. But before we do, just in case somebody has not listened to the first 2 episodes, Sonny Piekarz, George Lyall, Jordan Wells. Sonny, give us your player card if somebody were to print one out on you.
30 years in the dog world. Started with Upland. Primarily all pointing breeds. From there, guided across the United States. From there, went to obedience work, and currently working single-purpose detection dogs.
Hay Creek Kennels in Gilman,
Wisconsin.
Yep. George.
I've been in the bird dog world for 30 years, working with dogs and people, and trying to help people get better with their animals and have a more enjoyable experience out in the upland and waterfowl world. And
full disclosure, you are my bird dog training mentor, as I've mentioned about
happy to help you
400 times over the last 5 years.
Very happy to help Jordan? You out, and anyone else I come across.
Grew up with dogs, big bird hunter, turned into a dog trainer. Been doing that professionally over a decade now. Running my own commercial kennel, and we're J. Wells Kennels out of Connecticut.
Right on. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dogs have come through with hundreds and hundreds of people that you have trained. You guys do have seminars this summer, so if anyone's interested, there's a seminar, I think in May in Connecticut, then June in Wisconsin, and July in Minnesota. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and it's under The Method Dog Training. You can also probably find more, I would assume, on each of your sites, right? J. Wells Kennels, if you search for that, and Hay Creek Kennels, you'll find more there. I mentioned this in the last couple shows because there's a ton of value in seeing it firsthand. You're going to be in a group with a lot of other people and their dogs. There will be a dog in every... Is there a dog in every group that's a little bit wilder, let's say? Yeah, and that's the one you always pick, isn't it?
That's the one everybody talks about years after.
Yeah, totally.
Remember that dog.
The moment, the chills, when you see this dog that is ready to rip somebody's arm off, and then in a little while, they're just a totally model citizen out there.
Rip their arm off, meaning they're pulling on the lead and they're doing whatever they want to do instead
barking,
of what...
maybe. They're aggressive. There's all kinds of stuff. And those are the ones where most of us, let's be honest, most of us are going to say, I don't want to go anywhere near that dog. I don't trust that one. That one's going to bite my arm off. How many times have you guys been bitten?
Once.
That's it?
Twice.
I've been bit more than that. I don't even work with dogs.
Yeah, mine was a black lab and a French Brittany. And there were 2 times I was working with them and took my attention off to help somebody else, training, and got nailed when I wasn't paying attention. And those were, bites that needed stitches. So but other than that, haven't been bit since, because it's always, you can see the bite way before it happens.
I wish I had that vision.
One
So I
time
just
for
got
me
bit
and-
like 2 weeks ago.
One time for me, and it was my own dog, and it's the same deal. You're not focused and whatever. And the dog was more, it was more like, almost like, hey, back off. I want my space kind of deal.
Same story. Wasn't paying attention. We don't get bit because we're always anticipating being bit.
What do you mean anticipating? If a dog's charging you, what do you anticipate? You put your boot up or something?
I anticipate that every dog has potential to bite you. Dogs bite, horses kick.
I mean, you can push yourself to a bite very quickly if you can't see that dog saying, I will bite you if you progress, So the dog is body language telling you, hey, move at this pace with me. If I push too hard, too fast, I put myself in that situation.
Interesting. What about a guy that's showing up on a farmer's property that's trying to ask permission to hunt, and there's a dog out front and he's giving you the eye?
Run.
Run?
I think that's what Sonny said before. What do? Run.
There's a lot of birds in that field.
Run
and I
or
really
charge.
want to get permission.
Risk and reward.
Yeah, I know. That's where I've been bit before. That's all I'm saying.
Trust but verify.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. So we left off on the course, and this being as a couple of objects you can see right here. If somebody's listening right now, you can also watch this on the Flush YouTube channel. The last 3 episodes are all there, or the last 2, and now this one being the 3rd one, our video. You can see us working with the puppy. You can see us introducing a puppy to birds for the first time, and how that light switch went off. That was amazing. I just like, that is so cool to see that. We've worked through some of these challenges and these obstacles that we just have planted here. This is a table. This is a cooler. These are items that most people have in their home, and they're just examples that we use here in this space. Obviously, there's other things you can use. There's really no limit to some of the obstacles. Safety-wise is, the main concern there. But finding things to overcome with your dog builds just that trust and that confidence in the dog to then work out into the field, which is where we are today. We've got a lead, we've got an e-collar, we've got a dog in the crate right there, and we feel good about this. We might have, I don't know, how old of a dog are we thinking today? 8-month-old dog? We want to go out and do some bird work. We've been working this obstacle course for 6 months. We feel great. We're in a good spot here. The dog buying in, waits at the kennel, when we open up, is eager to learn and work together. Now, all this time we've been wanting to go out and run the dog and find birds. Now we actually have a dog that's on the same page. So this is the point when we're ready to go out into some property that has potentially wild birds, or has birds in a controlled environment that you can place out there. So we're going to talk about what that might look like today on the show, and some of the things to do and to avoid, right? Because that's why we are researching. That's why we're all looking online for the best method to train our dogs to ultimately have just a great bird hunting dog that we can go out into the field with. So let's begin with putting the brakes on a dog. Okay, so the lead is basically our point of contact with the dog that we've used from the day we brought him home as a puppy, and now we work through the course that you build. Whoever is at home listening has built some obstacles or used obstacles, working the dog through. Now we've transitioned to potentially using voice commands with it, associated with it, right? So you can verbally communicate as well. And we have an e-collar, right? So these are tools that we're all using at this point with the dog. And now we're going to go out into the field. But how do you put the brakes on a dog? How do you have them stop, guys? Sonny, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I'll make a run at it. What crash courses through from a wool post, what we've used in the past, to the coursework today. the coursework today is really nothing more than what the wool post was yesterday, because it's an obstacle or it's an accomplishment. So from my point of view, or how I've experienced it, getting up on this place board or getting up on this cooler it's a wool post. It's about resistance and then a point of contact to do something, which would be to stand still. So the course ends up being, if there's let's just say there's 15 steps to get through the course. There's this piece, there's a bunch of different pieces. Every one of those pieces would be a wool post. The difference being, or where it's changed for me, is that there's never any resentment with the coursework. So the dog's ability to learn and process information is accelerated. So it's upbeat, it's fast paced, and you're kind of in and out fairly quick, to the point where you can rig a dog with a collar, and now that collar has turned into part of the course. So, of course, you go back to that first piece with that collar on that flank. That dog says, I might have some confusion, I might not, but the bottom line is it understands the coursework. So then that collar that's on its flank, now he has the confidence to say, I can do this even though I've gotten something strapped to my waist. And then from there, it's just a matter of now building the point of contact, which is to stop. He's hypersensitive and he's on steroids to learn because he understands his course and he's mastered it. That's the key, that he's mastered the course. From there, the collar's on the flank, and you just literally in between the pieces of the coursework, you start making dry stops with a continuous pressure on an e-collar on a flank. Okay. Are we good up to that point?
Yeah.
You got anything to add?
I mean, on the flip side, I think touch base on if we put a collar on a dog and they totally lose their mind, just like reflex-wise, you put an e-collar on the flank, the dog is not comfortable. Spend that time running the dog through the course, just wearing that collar before you start using it. That's a big piece of, your dog may say, yeah, I could care less. I can wear that, no problem. Or it may be a dog that is extremely overreactive to have that collar, just sensation-wise. Mm-hmm. So that's where the course has been so, influential to the dog to go right back to something it's already had success with, getting onto this bed while wearing that collar. All of a sudden, it redirects the dog's mind to try again, and then that collar is just no big deal.
George,
collar becomes a non-issue.
Yeah, we have one here. We have a dog here. Do you want to just, because I think, I've had my dog on television quite a few times with the collar on the flank, and I get a lot of people that send me messages. Why is there a collar on the dog's belly? Or why is your collar's on the wrong spot?
You had one comment and you called me about it. It's like, I got a comment that said, don't you know where the collar goes? It goes around the neck. And it's like, okay, well,
I know.
The person doesn't understand.
So there are people potentially right now that are watching or listening. Can we just take Rip out and put the collar on his flank and just show where it goes and and understand, I think we should do it on the flank. I also think we should do it on the neck where it ends up a lot of times, because what I see a lot of in the field is a collar that's so loose and dangling that it doesn't necessarily have the ability to give that point of contact or that stimulation that we want. But then you also don't want to be too tight as well. So I think this would be a great demonstration to pull it out right now.
Okay, so we're going to show it on the flank, and he's had it on the flank, so I don't anticipate any confusion. Mm-hmm. But we'll just take him through this.
If there is, then that's a real life scenario that might happen at home. So let's play it out.
He's 3 years old.
Yeah, we'll show him moving through the course with just ease, wearing that. Like it's not a mental handicap.
Yeah, and we're putting this collar on the flank and we're working through the course. We're not using the collar. We're not stimulating the dog. We're getting the dog to accomplish the task she did before through the course. We've just added the collar as another piece of the course. And if once they accomplish that, then we can.
And if you've been listening, like that problem-solving mindset, that dog will figure that collar out in like 1 or 2 workouts because they're experts at problem-solving in that course. So they're, instead of fight or flight or a bunch of resistance, they're going to go, what do I need to do to be successful? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden that dog kicks into, there's something going on. What do I do here? And they try before they react. And that's the biggest piece that we saw is it's not this scale of what is this reaction. It's more or less, how quickly this dog is figuring this out.
And with the quickly being stated, if we go back to the last episode, the dog that we're going to be using right now had the ability to stand on this cooler by himself without George being there. As far as I'm concerned, we're there. So now that collar goes on, and then all we do is we pair the collar with the lead to stop. And then instantly off the cooler, he'll go, if we had enough room, we'll put him on the ground, and he is going to stop on the ground. On the ground. As soon as we get to the ground, he's ready to be cut loose. Mm-hmm. And then that transfer, it used to be from the flank to the neck. It took a fair amount of time to build points of contact on the flank to the neck. Literally today, I'm going off the course because it's been built. It's been done to the field, cutting them loose. Their puppy development has been done, so they love to go. Mm-hmm. Low level pressure, they stop. Literally from there, with just a minimal amount of workouts, because the coursework has been done so crisp and clean, we can go right from the flank to the neck without pairing collars, without a bunch of just confusion, and just touch that neck, and they know to stop.
We know the feeling. When you close your eyes, you're there. Wide open spaces, fresh air. You have big dreams. We also know there's uncertainty. Between you and your destination, there's the unknown. But we know how to get you there. We've been helping people like you find their way home for decades. We're Compeer Home, and we know the way. To get started or find out more, visit us at compeerhome.com or by calling 833-986-8001. Compeer Home is a division of Compeer Financial, who is an equal opportunity provider and employer and an equal credit opportunity lender. Compeer Home Services, NMLS number 619731. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved.
America's greatest pheasant hunting experience awaits you in Aberdeen, South Dakota. So many birds, so little time, so many memories. Come for the adventure, return for the tradition. They have so many dog-friendly and hunter-friendly hotels, thousands of acres of public land, and the Aberdeen Pheasant Coalition public lands. Hunt Aberdeen, South Dakota. Request your free hunting guide at huntfishsd.com. That's huntfishsd.com.
All right, let's see it, George. We got Rip, 3-year-old here. He's asleep because he's been in this cabin for a little while. Oh, he's awake. All right.
So when we rig him with the collar, maybe we can just jump him up here with no pressure and just see if he'll stand.
And to think about deeper, mentally and physically, George is asking him just be still. Mm-hmm. And he's going to ask them to do that out here. So if this dog can't sit still in this kennel right now, which we talked about in puppy development, it's unfair to try to get a dog to be still out here. You're starting on basics that you've been shaping for the last 8 months.
If somebody's listening to this episode right now and they haven't listened to the first one or two, it's unfair to do this step in the process.
Yes.
Okay. Go back and listen to the first two. That's what I would say.
And the other big piece about the wool breaking process using this, the body being the what's the term? The body being the
lightest amount of communication. Through the process, we're using our body to teach this dog to stop. So when we do go to overlay it with an e-collar, it is absolutely second nature to just stop. So we're using our body that first time or two to stop. And then, of course, we just drop the lead and walk off, and he knows exactly what to do.
All right. So, George, I'm going to have you turn around this side and put it on from the back side. I know that might not be normal, but in order for us to see what's happening here, can you do it that way? All right. So where are you placing it? Where's he placing it, Sonny? Sorry, he doesn't have his microphone on.
The narrow spot on his flank.
Okay.
And then if it's too loose, they're not going to stop. If it's too tight, they're not going to move. It's nothing any deeper than that.
It's basically like a, is it the 5 fingers, or how many fingers can you fit underneath it?
It needs to be tight enough to make contact.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would say that's too loose, George. Based on what I've seen, George had it was 3 or 4 fingers underneath it, and he could still lift up. So when you put that on, it's like when you it's like with a horse, right? When you put the riding equipment on a horse, you tighten it up after a little bit.
Hang on a second, George, so we don't miss it. So didn't mean to interrupt you, but now going back to probably episode 2, when we're talking about the hands and the physical touch, this is where the stuff starts to get paired together.
Okay.
because now there's something that's confusing that potentially could be going on, and our hands represent something. So as we're putting this collar on, we don't want to be herking and jerking and pulling and prodding. We need to pay attention to our hands. We want them to embrace the fact of what we're doing.
Okay. So right now, what is the dog doing? A dog's posture is a little bit different, right?
Yeah, right now what's going on in this dog's mind is he's wondering, because from what the dog is telling me, that I've not had this on for X amount of months. So therefore, there's no confusion, but the game has changed. So then what's going to happen through movement, he should loosen right up.
Okay.
If he doesn't, we just do a few more reps.
Right now,
Absolutely.
Rip is going for a walk. And what I was saying about with the horse, it's the same type of thing. There's his tail. His tail's
loose.
He's back up. Now he's loosened up. So when you put that collar on the first time, like on the flank, they're so tense and tight that it's tight. And then once you start running, they loosen up, and all of a sudden you want to adjust usually 1 or 2 notches.
It's a very like unnatural spot for a dog to be touched. So naturally, most dogs have reflex. You even like fetch training, trying to get in their mouth or putting a flank collar on the first time, they kind of get in a very unsure mindset. And it takes, a couple reps in the course to let that dog know that collar is not going to harm you. That collar is, safe. That collar is, so they need some confidence, built with that new obstacle that was just put on them. It's mental for them. So it's our job now of like, if you put that collar on and that dog starts getting nervous, all they're doing is asking for help. You can't go to using that collar right away. You got to let them know, everything's going to be all right. This is just another step. So they're looking for that guidance when their body language goes into stress or I'm unsure. We can't just keep grinding on them mentally and just say, this is what we're doing today. So each individual dog that you put that collar on will give you, a broad range of reactions of, I don't like this, or this doesn't faze me one bit. We're okay to get to work right away.
So then as we go through the course, from the folks that would understand what a wool post meant yesterday, you're literally, each piece of the course, you're hitting another wool post. So as you go through the course, they'll get real comfortable real quick. And then if the question's going to come up of why is it on his flank and not his neck, and it's because 90% of the dogs that we work have had an e-collar on a dog's neck for recall. The other thing is that flank is a real good natural moving away from pressure, which automatically they move away from the pressure. Their running gear comes out from underneath, and it's just a natural stop moving.
For me to add to that, 2 different spots of the collar, when you teach that spot, it's a new type of pressure. It's continuous, and it's a new, action, which is stand still. So there's zero confusion when you're not using the neck to teach the wool. So the flank is a very clear, spot for the dog to learn mentally that this is stand still only. So we're not working really any other command or any other action off that flank except stand still, so they can master it very quickly.
And if it would be a flushing breed, it would go to the top of his back, which would be to sit still.
Would that pressure that will eventually come trigger that flushing breed to sit naturally?
Absolutely.
That's
because
what
the points are on his back, which he moves away from the pressure, which automatically sits him.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, why don't we show that then? Let's just demonstrate. So, of a pointing dog breed, to get him to stand still, the pressure would be applied this way, where the prongs are underneath, pointed up, and now for the flushing.
Yeah, it would look just like that.
There you go.
And that would be to just sit still.
Yep. All right. So how do you transition then? How many reps? How often are you doing it this way until you feel confident moving up to the neck? Because a lot of people want to just get there. I did too.
I don't think we need to. We can if we want. As far as the reps, it's when your dog is forward, loose, feeling good. Now, keep in mind, he's already felt good on the course. He has the course mastered. Mm-hmm. So reps or time, it's going to take as long as it takes. But my experience has been, it's literally 1 or 2 reps of going through the course with the collar on the flank, and they're ready to roll.
They have to have learned behavior. Like, you can't just get conditional responses of, he stopped a couple times, in the field. He must understand, and then go to the neck and cause confusion. And you're going to be like, that sucker's not stopping. I'm just going to turn it up. And all of a sudden that dog runs back to you and recalls because that's default on the neck. Now you got yourself a huge problem. And I see that a ton of people trying to stop their dogs and the dogs bolting and recalling. They didn't do a good job of teaching learned behavior, what that collar really communicates to stand still.
It would be safe to assume that when this dog is ready to have a collar on his flank, he's almost got the course mastered off lead. Like he'll buzz right through it with you. There's that. It's
and
that
then
understood.
you'll see like real life situations. People will go to this flank collar and all of a sudden, we'll get dogs in that, maybe a dog's trying to sit or lay down or, do different behaviors that people are really going to experience. That's why we're having the leash on the dog when we're teaching that, so we can really mentor that dog what to do. So this is not like a, Sonny says it's quick, it's fast. It's not a, do this in the course a couple times, see him stand, and then go work birds on it. It's got to be a little bit of dry running in the field and really building success with the dog doing it over and over. So when you do go say, hey, buddy, don't chase that bird, he goes, yeah, no problem. Instead of, I'm going to bail out or I'm going to quit because I truly didn't understand what you taught me.
Mm-hmm. The repetition is such a big deal, but let's show then what it looks like moving it up to the neck, all right?
When you put a collar on a dog's neck, you put it up right beyond the ears, as high as up it'll go. And the dog's neck is, kind of shaped where it's skinny behind the ears. It gets wider and broader as it gets to the shoulders. So the collar can't possibly slide down the dog's neck or move up and, not make contact. So up around, the neck high up is a great position. As far as positioning for the box, I like it off the throat to the side a little bit where the skin's tighter. So e-collar positioning, every trainer is going to tell you different. But I do position my collars to be a little bit offset. And I just feel like it makes a better connection all the time with the dog. And tightness, it's the same as the flank. You put it on, cinch it down. You should be able to slip your 2 fingers underneath.
2 or 3?
Just, depending on your finger
Depends
size.
how fat your fingers are.
Yeah.
I'm a 2 finger.
And then also keep in mind that collar on flank, the dog has the course mastered. He's got it mastered. Collar goes on flank. Now, the pressure that's paired with the lead is going to be continuous on the neck when we're applying collar on the flank. So they're going to pair it together to stop, which is nothing more than lead comes up, pressure goes on, pressure turned off. Go through another piece of the coursework, lead comes up, constant pressure, collar goes on. So now he understands what continuous pressure means through his neck and through his flank. Now we go from flank to neck. Now that, as if we had the room, that dog's going to walk around. We're just going to literally cue up with the lead, pair the collar on the neck, and then eventually, within X amount of workouts, eliminate the lead and then just touch the collar on the neck and he stops moving. You're there.
Yeah, it's a process that takes a little bit of time, but it's, in my experience, it happens pretty quickly. Just how fast they understand that.
It's happening quickly compared to what we used to do because the dog has got a lot of enthusiasm to want to continue to keep learning because they have mastered the course. They like the course. The course is stuff that we do together. So this is nothing more than we're going to achieve this together, and the collar is now a piece of the course.
Yep.
Sure. So we're going to drop back to that collar on the flank. And just for a demonstration purpose, and let's just say you put your remote in hand. This is just for the demonstration and just kind of show, you don't have to apply any pressure, but just show how you would just pick up on the lead and pick up on your collar. And that's when they would be coming on at the same time. Yeah, just, right. You just pick up your hand. So maybe we can get the idea of it.
Let's have you turn so not back to the camera and block in the view. Yep.
Like a lot of dogs that you get this collar on for the first time too.
So there would be the two paired together.
You will see like this dog goes up there, no problem. And as soon as you put the collar on, he says, I can't do that. So there's going to be like, for listeners that go home and try this, you put that collar on, dog's going to say, I can't move. I can't walk. I can't jump. I can't do, you know, you're just whoa posting. Those are all the resistance.
That's resistance.
So when George is doing what he's doing, you can see how willingly that dog just followed out of body language. There was no like mental handicap, you know, with that collar.
That's an experienced dog, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying when you're
Yep.
ready to pair that stimulation, that's what it should feel like moving up there. Is if that was the first time, say, he went up there and got touched with the collar, that's what it should feel like going into that
Gotcha.
moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. What George is saying, he doesn't have the mic on, but what he's saying is he doesn't touch that e-collar button until the dog has mastered this and felt comfortable wearing it. So you might have a whole night of training without ever touching the button. Just let him wear it and let him work through it. And then the next time you bring the dog out to work together, you eventually get to this point of comfort. Then you can start overlaying, and then you continue the process. Don't ever speed through it is the advice that I was given. Don't try to rush through this.
Don't speed through it, and don't just try to grab this podcast and go do it on your own. There's pieces of this that we're missing.
What are the pieces?
It needs to be just need to be slowed down. Like just slow everything down. I guess what I don't want the message to be is I need a cooler and a play sport in my living room. I can break my dog. It's you know, they need to stay loose. Mentally, they have to stay loose, and they just need to be moving freely, loosely.
Want to add anything to that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think touching back on moving too fast is once you cause resentment on that flank or standing still, you know, it's hard to get rid of that. And that was a big piece of why I changed to this was, you know, the whoa breaking was hard on a dog. They never enjoyed it. Then that would follow you to the birds. And it was always like, it's okay if their tail ticks a little bit or they're tucking. That'll come back when you... And it was just the dog being resentful the whole process. So I think, you know, for listeners to really think about this process, this is something that's just molded a little bit at a time. And it'll feel really fast, but in the end, you have to shape this and mold this to a point where, you know, you don't want to cause resentment there. Because once you do, it shows up on your bird work.
And the molding is coming from the coursework last episode and the episode before that.
And I think the piece missing Sonny's talking about is don't get in a rush to get it done. It's more or less like showing the advancements of the dog being confident in this stage, then that stage. So somebody that didn't get to see the whole process from start to finish to get here, you know, may just say, well, my dog jumped on a cooler at home, I could start whoa breaking. That's the point. So there's a little bit more as far as relationship that's got to be built, a little bit more of, you know, history that's got to be there before we can get to this point.
All right. So you get to this point, George, you got to add something here.
Well, I just want to add real quick. What they're saying is you got to listen to the first podcast and you got to listen to the second podcast.
You got to follow the steps.
You have to follow the steps. Don't glaze over that because this is what you think you want to, you want to get here. But you have to do those two other steps before you even get here.
Yep.
Slow down. Don't rush.
And the slower you go, the faster you're going to go.
Yep, exactly.
We said that earlier, and now we're just reiterating. You can't get to this point without doing the other parts of the process.
Now we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to move it from the flank to the neck.
Okay. Sounds good. Here goes the microphone back off. Can you do it from this side so that we can see it without blocking the view?
And again, loose lead, walking around with just body language. George's body language is leading this dog. If you're having to cue the dog or, you know, pull on the dog or the dog's not following you, you're missing, you know, the whole piece to being ready to do what we're doing. The dog has to be in that extremely willing state of mind. And it's not hard to get there. It's just structure.
If there's the two probably the most important things, or if we should have two banners hanging, or if there should be two big red signs going off, it should be loose lead. If throughout the whole process, if you are feel like you're fighting with that lead or that lead is not loose, you're not there. So when we're talking about how do you know when you're ready, when that lead is loose and that dog is moving with you willingly and going through the course willingly without having to apply pressure or cue, you're there.
And I used to train with a tight lead. And for me, I didn't understand how much I was restraining that dog to make decisions and kind of default his learning process. So that loose lead, that dog gets to move around in real time and make decisions, and you're just there to help him make better ones.
As this door goes open, if that dog would want to go rush to the door to say hello to the person, embrace that. Don't make him stand here. Allow him to have the opportunity to go check it out. There's nothing wrong with that. But then there's a consequence for your behavior, and that's what we're trying, that's the bond that we're building. It's totally okay to go check out the bird. It's totally okay to go check out the door, but then understand that there's a consequence for your behavior. Do not rob them the consequence of their behavior. So don't fight them to stay there. Loose lead. That's where that is.
All right, so George, you're going to apply the pressure on the neck the exact same way you did with the flank, raising up the lead and applying the pressure at the exact same time. So there's really 2 points of stimulation that are being presented
and
to the dog.
Hang on, because there's some magic happening here. So right now we're going to now have a momentary, which is to pay attention, and then the jump would be going then with your continuous.
There you go.
So that the dog drifted off, we cued the lead to have him pay attention.
And then George led him. Once he got him paying attention, George moved his body forward. The dog says, I'm supposed to go with you. And then he stopped the dog with continuous pressure.
There it is.
And then the next step would be there is no pressure with the lead. They're just the collar, and you're ready to roll.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Would you like to establish a native prairie? Whether it's a small patch of wildflowers or a large field of upland bird and wildlife habitat, there are a lot of questions that may arise. The what, when, how, and how much can actually be overwhelming. Our friends at Hoksey Native Seeds can help. Not only do they sell native seeds, with over 40 years of growing their own prairie, they're happy to consult for free on any of your native prairie needs. Family-owned and operated, Hoksey Native Seeds has provided countless acres of premium native habitat mixes sourced straight from their own fields in the heart of Iowa. For a free consultation, find them at HokseyNativeSeeds.com. If you're active in great outdoor adventures, then odds are good that you have gear, equipment, and toys that you need to haul. Well, our friends at Aluma Trailers, they've got you covered. Their trailers are built by a hardworking team in Bancroft, Iowa, right here in the good old USA. They have models for all of your hauling needs, from ATV and UTV trailers to snowmobile, motorcycle, car trailers. And, well, basically, if you need to haul it, they have a trailer to tow it. Trust me when I say that Aluma Trailers tow gear like a dream. Their trailers are constructed out of lightweight, strong, corrosion-resistant aluminum, and they are 100% maintenance-free. Plus, they come with an industry-best 5-year warranty. Visit alumaklm.com to find a trailer that fits your needs. I left Pheasant Fest with a new toy this year. It's the GAIM Virtual Hunting and Shooting Simulator. It's a virtual reality hunting and shooting game that gives shooters and hunters the ability to work on their shot and learn in real-life situations. Let's just say there's not a lot of work getting done in our office right now because everyone wants to play. It's the most lifelike hunting and shooting game I've ever seen. The first time I put the VR headset on and shouldered the wooden gun, I was amazed at how accurate the sights were on the gun. You can even calibrate the gun to make sure that when you shoulder it, everything lines up perfectly and fits. There's hunting simulators for big game, ducks, and pheasants, which are unreal. Plus, there's different trap ranges, sporting clays, and 5-stand courses too. The real beauty to this is that it shows your shot when you fire. If you miss it, it shows where you miss. After seeing your mistakes in real time, you can correct your lead and ultimately make better shots. Pretty cool, huh? To learn more about the GAIM Virtual Hunting and Shooting Simulator, head to GAIM.com. That's GAIM.com. Do that repetition how many times? 3s and 7s, right?
Let's just call it 30.
Okay.
Why?
But
Why?
Would you do
Because
3 reps of
because
3?
you need a number.
Yeah.
I have the truth of the matter is I have had dogs that have got it in 3 stops. 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop, we go to the field. But then there's dogs that have taken maybe 15 or 20. But the truth is the repetition of 3s and 7s, 3 dry stops in my equipment area, and go right to my field gate and cut them loose and stop
I think
them.
to touch on like the psychological part of the dog is, if we're training an owner, that dog has to have enough learned behavior to be a little bit recoverable. When somebody gets in that driver's seat that can't necessarily read the dog, as well, or hey, I accidentally pressed a 5 on the collar and stuff, that dog has to be like, no, I knew what you were asking for. So, to take a dog out and do it the first day, you have to really, you can't miss the steps. You have to be a little bit more delicate. But as the dog, say 30 repetitions like we're talking about, and say I'm training a dog for somebody and I bring him in and you want me to do what? And it's like, well, when he's running, switch from momentary to continuous, then go from low 1 to medium 1. And they totally screw it up, but that dog stopped anyways. He's been doing that for X amount of weeks, and he says, I got what you were saying. Instead of, I didn't get it, there was confusion. So you want to really just spend your time as the handler learning exactly what you're asking that dog to do. It all starts with the person. So if Sonny can do it in a workout, it doesn't matter if it takes you 2 weeks. It's all about the person becoming very confident with their equipment, how to pair that collar with the leash, how to get that dog to stop, what it looks like when they stop, and then, how to go up and down on pressure. There's a lot of variables that happen on the handler side to make that successful.
Yeah, I would say that behind the scenes or in the trenches with the training, I'm going to say 75% of the dogs are carrying their handler. We've trained them to the point where they're so confident that they can take a clumsy handler and carry them through. That's our job.
Yeah.
So this isn't like me or we can probably get stuff done pretty quick because the amount of dogs we're messing with on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean that a handler is going to have that same success in that same amount of time.
Sure. Well, I think there's a lot of confidence that you guys have that just is innate, like at this point in your journey. Whereas the average person who's trying to figure out how to train their dog, who's listened to us talk for 5 hours now about this, they're just trying to get that confidence. And you just have to go through it in order to gain confidence. That's how you gain it. It's through experience, right? So, you can.
Mistakes are totally okay.
I'll even let clients, run my personal dogs and say, just try to get them stopped. I could care less you mess it up because the dog's going to stop anyways. So, building that person's confidence, that's what, again, the method is all about, is the people. So putting people in the driver's seat to feel it, see it, what it should look like. And hey, you only got one chance with your dog. So go back now and you've done it. You've felt that success. All of a sudden they feel confident to go do it. So,
oh man, if everybody would have the ability to do that, it's like test driving a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just going and I don't know.
I think behind the scenes, or at least for us building this program, a big piece of what we've really worked hard for is to share the secret sauce, if you will. Like we don't have anything to hide. We want to be able to teach the people on how to apply the program. Therefore, the next dog, you probably don't need me, but maybe for my facility, because I have the equipment and the birds and everything else for you to get it done right.
So let's move then to the field, because before we turn the cameras and the mics on, we had a really not a knockout, drag out conversation, but the reality is that birds are not available to everybody. Where these dogs are eventually going to hunt is different for everybody. So the scenario, Jordan, you said 95% of the dogs you train will never see a wild bird.
Yeah, I would say maybe even higher. It's all pen raised, state stocked, gun club. And the closest birds that I have in Connecticut that are truly wild is driving up north. And people don't have the time, people don't have the resources. And then, for them to have 2 hours to hunt, they'd rather go know where there's birds put out for them and go shoot those birds over their dog. And that's hunting.
Sonny, what does your hunt look like?
My career was, I went from a pigeon to a wild bird. My whole career was I never kept quail. I went from a pigeon to had wild birds in my backyard to cut dogs loose and go get it done. So obviously, times have changed. They've changed. So here we are dealing with what we have to deal with.
And I have to train a very overstimulated dog with those type of birds, because those birds don't help at all in training. So I think, presentation of, what we're going to talk about as far as the type of dog, with those type of birds, it's a struggle for everybody out there. Like, buying poor raised quail, beat up chuckers or, pigeons that don't get up and fly, having access to a wild bird is like a dream. That's something I haven't personally ever got access to. I would have to really travel and, take my operation to go there. And it's not possible for the people that live where I live.
I understand that. And I think we have people listening from all over the country. And so everyone's situation is different. Every dog has skills. Some big running dogs are probably not suited for a small confined space with a bird that might not fly very well. Because what could happen, let's say, for example, a setter that is running fast, really doesn't even get going for a couple 100 yards into it. Well, that might be the whole area in a confined space. There's a bird, smells it, goes in, catches the bird. What do we just teach that dog?
How to catch the bird, but make sure we don't crucify the dog for catching the bird, because the dog did exactly what it should have done. If the bird isn't going to move, if the point is established because it couldn't catch it the last time. So if the point is established and all of a sudden the old chucker pokes his head up and he's walking around because he's a pen-raised bird with no brains, the dog is seeing, well, that's an easy bird to catch. So the natural instinct should kick in to just grab it.
Even if it's a pointing breed,
Absolutely.
like a German Shorthair Pointer.
Sure. So then the training gets that much more challenging because now your distraction is that much higher.
They think I can catch that bird.
Because they can.
And that's the value when you talk about only going to wild birds. There's not a wild bird that's going to let that happen.
Absolutely. Or, throughout the training process of the pigeons, we're using, and there could be controversy on this, and we could argue all day, but you got a pigeon in a trap where you control the launcher to make sure that the bird flies away to take the chase.
Mm-hmm. You want the chase and a puppy when you're introducing them. So let's go to the field. What does an ideal field look like? Is it cattails over your head where you can't see the bird?
Jordan's presentation, to have a proper presentation.
All right. What is it?
I think being able to see your dog, but just enough cover where your dog has to hunt. It's not a visual game. It's a hunting game.
They can't see the bird, but you can see the dog.
Yes. I think being able to stay connected visually with your dog for the first couple times out, you're going to have way more success than, going in those cattails or going into, thick woods where you got to just kind of listen for a dog or look at a GPS. You're going to be able to read your dog and watch the decisions that they're making in real time, being able to stay visually connected.
Objectives. Have your field, your training area groomed so that they can hit an objective, so that as they hit that objective, if there is a bird there or there's not a bird there, you can handle them to the next objective. So then, somebody might say, well, the grouse woods has no objective. It absolutely does. You have your tag elder run. You have your dogwood patch. There's objectives there, just like there's objectives on the prairie. Those dogs know that. So to have that presentation where they're not just, running through a stubble field that has absolutely nothing. I mean, there has to be some kind of a presentation or it groomed to where there's going to be objectives and things that they're going to hit to naturally want to try to hunt the bird.
A taller patch of grass, a cedar tree here, something that's just different.
Breaks it.
Breaks up the landscape.
Where I, live, people have access to like one or two of those. So the dogs become very anticipatory and local Navda, they're putting out hay bales and, the dogs are visually pointing those from like 50 yards and people are, excited their dog's that far off pointing when they just know there's a bird there. So now they're almost backing a hay bale. Those dogs become so anticipatory of running that same field over and over. I think it's good to find multiple areas to go to let that dog learn to hunt whatever cover it's put in. But starting with that open area is very important. But then moving from that area to somewhere different, rotating those, presentations that you're giving the dog.
Let's use this place, for example. There's 3 different fields available, or 4 or 5. I'm not even sure how many right now available. If somebody wanted to come out here to the Horse and Hunt Club right now and say, I'd like to buy 6 pheasants or 6 chucker or whatever.
Bring your lab.
Okay. Well, that's just it. Because I think a lot of times I hear people say, let's throw out some birds and see what happens. How many times have you heard that?
That's almost 100%.
100%.
Exactly. Let's throw out some birds and see what happens. what happens though? What are we doing here? Because we've gotten all this accomplished. You're at this point, and now let's throw it out and see what happens.
Well, I'm going to jump in and go.
Yeah, please.
I mean, we hear that comment because they've not used the method dog training system.
Maybe they've used a different one though.
Maybe they have used a different one, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 95% of the people follow a system, but are they really following it? So I'm just going to call it what it is. That's the people that make the comment, let's go out and throw out some birds and see what happens. They say they've done a training program, but a comment like that right away to me is a red flag. You haven't done it. Let's take a step back to what we did with the puppy on the first podcast. We introduced that bird to that puppy, and we're building off of that. So the comment like, let's just show up at the Horse and Hunt Club and throw out a few birds tells me you really haven't done all of this that we've talked about the last two podcasts.
And if I'm here for training, I'm thinking about like painting a picture. So I'm going to set up that bird in a presentation like it would be in more of a wild situation. I'm going to have, I'm going to cut the dog loose here. I'm going to run him down this edge. I'm going to turn right, and then that bird is over there. And if he gets this close, I'm going to fly that bird. If it's a pen raised bird, it's got to be in thin enough cover to be able to work off the pressure of the dog. So there's a whole like outline roadmap to get to that bird, which is no different from the obstacle course. So I'm going to handle a dog to there, and then I can turn my body just like we're doing in the course. I need my dog to stop and stand still. It's the same thing here. So I can direct that whole thing. I can paint that dog a picture of this is what it's going to look like when we're hunting. And that's really what you're trying to do, is make your training kind of like what your hunting is going to be and have the expectations be the same. So I think if you train really hard, like a lot of people do, and then they go out and they hunt and they let a lot of what they train, become very blurry or fall apart, that's where that dog is really getting affected, having that inconsistency. So you got to think about, if this happens, what am I going to do? It all comes back to the person.
Right. There are some don'ts for sure, right? I think people that have a pointing breed dog, a lot of longtime dog handlers, hunters would say, don't shoot a bird that your dog flushed if it's a pointing breed, right? Because you're encouraging it to go in and flush. You want it to stand still. That object is there. So that's just one example of a don't. But when you're introducing this dog to birds out in the field that they're going to go and find, right? I mean, we know that there's a lot of prey drive here from this puppy. We've gone through all this course. We get out there. What do you want to see happen when you know there's birds out there? What do you want to see? What do you hope happens?
Let's back up one step and then I don't know if we covered it or not, but make sure that in our presentation, we've had X amount of reps with just, if it's a pointing breed, just dry stopping the dog. A good point of contact that when his energy is high, his adrenaline is pumping, that we can just randomly stop. And he's totally at peace with it. He knows how to stop.
And you can leave your shotgun on the tailgate.
Yeah.
Say you have to put 6 birds out because that's like mentally what you want to see. Your dog may not point one of them. They may be all stop the flushes. You may put 3 birds together and work 3 singles. You may blank all of them. You may kill one of them. Your dog is always having to think and take direction from you. But if you go out and plant 6 birds in the same field, kill all 6 birds, send the dog on retrieves for all 6 birds, the next time you go out there, things are starting to fall apart already. It's not very wild anymore. That's what I face a lot with people back home is, I bought 3 birds. I'm going to kill all those birds. I'm going to put them out, and I want to see my dog to retrieve them. So people kind of get stuck into, routine, and we take the wild right out of it.
And what has to really happen with that situation, which nobody's going to do it because they're going to have to waste the money on the bird, you set 3 birds and the dog is ready to start killing birds over him, kill 1 bird. Because if you kill 3, now you're working on a retrieve, and as you teach something new, you have to back off your old. So as that dog now starts to retrieve bird number 1, bird number 2, what's on his mind for bird number 3 is the retrieve. So you'll lose a little bit on your steadiness.
Yeah, I always tell.
So if you really, I mean, if you want a dog to the finish, you need to really instill steadiness, which is just stand still for birds to fly off, for a second bird to flush, and then randomly start to bring in. And you're not going to do it because I'm one man and one dog and I'm going to kill my bird. We're going to be together. I'm going to focus on the dog. You're going to focus on the killing. I'm not even going to take my eye off the dog. You're going to tell me if the bird dropped, and you're going to direct me on where I need to get that dog sent to work on that retrieve.
Okay. Okay. So you know where the bird is, right? Let's say you have control of a pigeon. Let's just say you're using pigeons out there. The dog is working. The dog scents it. You can tell because it stops for a second. You release it the moment the dog moves in to go for the flush, right? Because we want to train this dog to stand still. But you can't do that with the remote because for the remainder of that dog's life, it'll be waiting for you to stop it to tell it when it needs to stop when you're hunting. And in a real wild bird hunting situation, you might not even see that dog when it comes into contact with that bird, right?
It's back to what Sonny was saying. You have to have the willingness. If you don't have we have homing pigeons. If the only way you can be around birds is you have to purchase the birds, you have to have the willingness to go, well, they went $25. So the willingness to let the bird fly away, let the dog chase that bird. And if by this time we should be able to roll the dog to a stop. We have brakes put on it. Let the dog learn.
And if you can get over yourself, because we all want to see the dog point, and I'm just as guilty as this, but if you can be disciplined enough to don't even worry about the dog pointing the bird, just literally have them run on their course and just fly a pigeon. They have not pointed it, and just take their chase. When they will stop the flush, 100% of the time, they're going to point. So now that bird that did flush and you want to shoot it, you shoot it. Well, you're pretty safe there because the dog probably didn't punch it. As the dog was moving through, the bird went to flush.
So that when you would shoot?
The dog went to stop, kill it.
The first one, even though he didn't even smell it, he wasn't even associated with the flush.
If you have a stop the flush because he's been conditioned, that's game on. I'm going to kill that bird because the dog did everything he was supposed to do.
Okay. It's good information.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're talking through this. There's a lot of things that are happening in your mind and also a dog that's very excited. Usually, in my experience, this scenario is with a very excited dog.
Yeah.
When I was taught to never let a bird be pointed in a trap. Flush every single bird. If you got a 3-bird set, the dog is cruising down there, flush that bird, take chase. Next bird, don't let him smell it. Just flush it, take chase. Well, within just a few reps, you have a dog that now has stopped the flush. When he will willingly stop the flush because he's never been able to smell them, he will point them and he will be steady. Because he's been conditioned to watching birds fly off. The problem that we're having today is we can't get the damn birds to fly. So if the quail comes up and the quail goes down, game on. He's going to catch it.
Yeah, he's going to catch it.
Yeah, we need flying birds.
That's why.
But the key, let me take a step back. The key, what Sonny was saying, is we're not involving scent. Everyone wants to, I want to work my dog and smell the bird and point. So just keep that in mind. This is a bird. When he said willingness to stop to flush, the dog never smelled that bird.
It just saw it go airborne.
It saw bird in the air.
Bird in the air.
You didn't touch anything, just to be clear. You didn't touch anything. You didn't cue it to stop.
You
just
didn't do
watch
anything
it.
with the dog.
If it keeps chasing after it, you don't shoot.
That bird in the air is the whoa command.
Yep.
Yes.
So when that bird shows that dog itself,
Mm-hmm.
it just told that dog whoa. So you have to think about, you never have to say whoa to a dog. The bird always does it, whether the smell of the bird, the dog on point for a back, or the bird in the air, that is your whoa command.
So the byproduct of that, because now we're getting way off into the ditch, and this is the old
That's
school.
what we're here for.
This is the old
doing
school
a
stuff
podcast.
that lit me up.
Yeah.
Now you do have a dog that goes on point.
Mm-hmm.
When you do get up there with that dog will give you feedback on where those birds are. So now if you want to kill birds, you follow that dog. Because now that dog knows how to play the game based on what he's learned, because birds keep flying. He knows how to work them. So he'll put you right where you need to have a shot. So I would say 99.9% of the time of all my years of guiding, because I did not want to bring my hunters off without birds to harvest, I would send my dogs on. Whistle them on. Means run. Well, your dogs are going to give you feedback
What do you mean by that? I'm confused by that.
They establish a point.
Yes, dog goes on point. I walk up. I might do it off the truck. I might do it I'm on a logging road and I can see my dog in there pointing growls. I'm going to blow my whistle, which tells that dog to move, go. What's going to happen when you have good means of communication because of the course, the dog might even get a little bigger because he's like, go, are you kidding? If I go, my birds are going to fly. Well, that's when you call your guys off the truck to get up here because have got birds.
He's essentially learned how to hunt that bird. So he's either saying, I can't, the bird has taught me everything, it's there, or it's going to hunt that bird. So Sonny's asking that dog, do you have birds? What's going on?
So George and I, we say, what do you got?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to bring up.
And if she's waiting to understand where I am to make her next move, then she'll hear me and move. If she's got a bird, bzz, bzz, she ain't moving. That's our basically our whistle then.
That's how you harvest birds.
Yeah.
That's how you kill birds.
Yeah, and that's where people are like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm just verifying that she has what she thinks she does.
Because that dog that's just standing there looking like $1 million and the birds have now moved because they've been pressured. So they know we're there and they've moved 50 yards, 100 yards, 150 yards. And now you have to verbally tell that dog it's okay to go. Eventually what's going to happen is you're going to get to the end and have maybe one bird fly because those birds just keep trickling off to the side. That dog ain't smart enough to know how to manipulate and work that covey or that grouse, and you won't. It's just a great big long walk.
That's why you don't let dogs point pigeons in traps, because you'll see everybody teaches a dog to point by just popping, and then they'll let them scent point and they'll pop it. But if you do that too long, too much, that dog stops hunting that pigeon. So it becomes a very anticipatory game. So you'll pop that pigeon and then the dog will just let down and not care anymore. You want that dog to hunt that bird and then use that pigeon in the trap, just like he's talking about, like those wild quail, to get up out of there. And as soon as that dog someday comes around and sticks that bird, way before he even thought he would, he's telling you, I understand this. I understand that bird. Help me. So now it's, what do we do next? How do we get to that bird? So the dog is showing you an understanding. At that point, you're done with pigeons. You don't need to keep just popping pigeons. So everybody's in the, I need pigeons, I need to get a trap, and they just over pop pigeons to the point where you can't even use pigeons to, get done what you need to do. It's just an unsuccessful kind of training situation over and over. So let them hunt that bird, but don't let them get that bird pinned, pointed. And all of a sudden, it happens all the time of, I'm looking at my training partner, Joe, and I'm like, you have that bird? And he's 40 yards off. And we hit the whistle and he's like, no, I have it. And it's all right, he understands this.
Mm-hmm. It's a new year, but some things stay the same, like the onX Hunt app being one of the most valuable hunting tools I take into the field every single day. I'd feel lost without it, both literally and figuratively. The app is a compass that's ideal for us bird hunters. It shows our position on planet Earth and the land boundaries. It also shows us information about crops and fields and tree covers. You can use the app in CarPlay and Android Auto. You can look at land in 3D to understand terrain. You can create your own trails, check weather, add waypoints, send your location to friends, scout property, find landowners, create your own diary of successful hunts, and so much more. They are also huge supporters of the best conservation organizations in North America, and onX is always working to create more publicly accessible places for you and I to hunt. What's not to love about the app? The onX Hunt app is awesome. Try it for free for yourself at onxhunt.com. If you're one of the lucky hunters that harvested your own tasty wild game this hunting season, then I want to personally congratulate you on your success. Well done. And if you want to make the most of all that hard-earned meat, then I recommend you head over to waltons.com. They have everything but the meat. That's their motto. They have all the tools to help you process and prepare your meat, like grinders, mixers, stuffers, slicers, smokers, grills, and seasonings. They have thousands of items in stock and ready to ship the same day. They've also recently launched their own dry curing cabinet and a whole line of chambered vacuum sealers, from large commercial-grade sealers to smaller handheld models. And let me tell you, they are awesome. This year, John Tremblay and his team at Walton's are really focused on adding new content to their Meatgistics library to help all of us hunters make the most of our meat. All of that can be found at waltons.com, and you can listen to their own weekly Meatgistics podcast too. I'm happy to call the hardworking team at Walton's my friends, and I believe they will treat you like one if you choose to trust them with your own meat processing needs. Find everything they have to offer at waltons.com. So this all makes a lot of sense. What about the guy who has a dog that doesn't really know what his purpose is out there in the field? He doesn't really know that he's a hunting dog yet because it hasn't all come together. He's flushed him. He's had himself a day out there running buck wild, and there goes some birds, and I smelt them, but I didn't know that I was actually supposed to be a part of this process to bring him back because let's say we don't have access to planting birds. We don't have access to pigeons. We only have public ground, and these are wild birds, and we may not come in contact with very many. And the times we do, they're hens. We don't shoot. And then all of a sudden, I miss a rooster, whatever it might be, and a season goes by. I know this guy, by the way. And a season goes by. It's not me, but I do know this guy. A season goes by, and the dog never got to see the whole process come back around full circle to putting that bird in his mouth to realize I'm a bird dog. So what do we do now?
That's my clients. Is I'm getting 1-year-old, say 1.5-year-old dogs that I have to start with puppy development. So the dog doesn't know cover. The dog doesn't know how to hunt. The dog doesn't, really understand the bird. So even though they're not puppies anymore, a lot of the dogs are running around, chasing Tweety birds in the air. The greatest thing in the world is a seagull flying around, da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, can you train my dog for hunting? He's, X amount of years old or months old. And it's like, yeah, we got to start with puppy development. No, he's a year old. And I'm like, no, we got to start with puppy. He's got to learn how to hunt. He's got to learn the cover, how the birds work. So anybody that comes in that's, we hear it all the time. No, he chases squirrels. He goes after birds. He's got prey drive. And you put him in the woods and it's like, there's a bird there and he's just walking around, pisses over there. And he's like, your dog has no idea how to hunt. So it's, you gotta.
This is real world stuff here.
Prey drive and hunt drive are completely separate from me. That dog that will chase a rabbit is totally different from a dog that will hunt for 3 hours and never find a bird, but get up and do it tomorrow again. So that hunt drive is developed in that dog. And if they don't have it, you can't go put all these rules on the game. They have to have that desire and that understanding of the game.
So then you need to, at some point, that dog needs to put a bird in its mouth?
No. And we'll get all kinds of hate mail for this.
I know. But this is not, it should be step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're there. You got a pro. It's not that easy, right?
Dogs don't need to retrieve a bunch of birds to make bird dogs. If they were to be left alone naturally within their pack, especially all these young dogs, they're not going to be part of the actual kill. They're going to be part of the kill, but they're not necessarily going to get to eat anything.
They're just going to keep chasing, though. If they're pointing dogs, let's say it's a wire-haired pointing Griffon.
Well, if we're at a point where we think that we need to actually have a bird in a dog's mouth to make him point, we need to start a whole new podcast.
That's not how it works.
It's not about the bird in the mouth that makes a dog point.
Explain that then, because that's I'm telling you that I think a lot of people want to make sure that their dog. Otherwise, why would they be saying, I need to go work with some birds? Because they think the dog needs to have birds in the mouth.
I think a lot of people try to use the bird as a sense of reward for the action of the dog when it doesn't need to be that. The bird does not need to be presented to the dog in their mouth every situation. So it could be like you killed 1 in 10 for the dog, and it's just enough to keep him wanting to hunt.
But if there's a 0 of 10, I've seen dogs that just don't quite. It doesn't. They go through it. They hunt, right? But they haven't actually gotten the reward ever, and so in their mind, they don't fully know.
He's already said it. Now we go back to a puppy development and help them learn to hunt.
You're just a hands-on bird right here?
Well, say I get that Griffon in at a year old, and they're like, can you start? Have you ever been on birds? No, I'm going to puppy development. And then I let a quail fly away, and the dog goes, I don't know what that was.
I'm talking about the dog who's out there hunting with the other dogs out in the field. Dogs,
it has no clue.
Birds, a grouse goes on point, grouse flies away. No shot was taken. Dang it, missed that opportunity. Eventually, it just almost doesn't, the drive is not there because.
So like I was saying, like that, say I bring that Griffin, I may handicap that quail and let it bump chase and catch one, just to go back to puppy development. Just like we had this puppy in here, got his mouth on it.
Yeah, that's what we did.
That lasts for a lifetime, just that fire, if it's bred into them. Some dogs that, are on the fence about, do I really want to be out here or not? You have to entice them. You have to, make some handicap birds where it's more of a easier bump and chase, or it's not just flyaways. So you have to work with the dog that you're given, but keeping them mentally hooked up, that's just the balance in the training. So if you have a dog that comes in older with like no drive whatsoever, you have to spend almost a month doing a puppy development, to get that dog to want that bird. But it's not necessarily about a bird in the mouth that's going to create that dog to want to hunt. But it may start with bumping, chasing, catching a couple birds just to light that fire. But now all of a sudden those birds are flying further away. Now you can't catch those birds. And all of a sudden we brought that dog that didn't really have any interest or drive, or maybe they did, and now they're willing to go through a process to stand still for them, or they're willing to, have rules on the game. But you can't, those dogs you're talking about that never get, kind of any opportunity, you can't go put a bunch of rules on that game. So, Sonny's dogs, my dogs, George's dogs, they see a ton of birds, but they're never killed a lot of birds. And that's a big thing for people to kind of think about, is that bird to us, the way we think about it, is not necessarily like a reward and, for an action of the dog, but we use it to keep the drive to want to keep working.
Some of my absolute best dogs had opportunities to have birds in their mouth when they were a puppy and never got a bird in their mouth the rest of their career. True story. Because if I had them working on retrieving or hunting dead birds, I was burning them up. So that's when I would call in a cocker or a lab, give that pointing dog a break to just kind of recoup, just gather yourself up, because it could be 90 degrees. So feathers dry out their mouth. It makes a big mess. I mean, they went their whole career, never retrieved a bird.
After hunting
they
season,
still had the same drive to go out and
They
find
were
the
probably
next one.
better when they died. I mean, they were stronger when they aged out.
after a hunting season with my trial dogs, I don't kill any birds for them or let them get a bird in their mouth. And then they go right through trial season, because it's all about the game that we're playing of stand still, stand still. But it's not like they don't remember how to retrieve.
Sure.
As soon as you ask them, it's there.
Well, we're over an hour,
Right.
and we haven't talked about fetch and retrieve. We've been really talking a lot about pointing dogs, right? Pointing breeds here in the last bit of this conversation. Obviously, we have a pointer in the box there, but does it change your approach if it's an English Cocker, a Lab, or a different Flushing breed dog when you bring them out there into the field for the first time?
No, they're a dog.
It's a
Do the
much
same thing.
It's a much easier process to bring them along, because you're not asking for all these rules.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing a true.
Do you
sit
feel
to
like you
flush.
could just say, "Let's bring them out and see what happens"? Then
I mean, like, I have cockers, so naturally what I'm looking for out of that cocker is to stay at heel when my dog's going point. I'm
Yeah.
setting that cocker in, flush that bird, kill that bird, and then go pick it up for me. To me, it's a different training process to bring a pointing dog along, build all this desire, and then put a ton of rules on it. Stand still, back another dog. So my retrievers or my flushing dogs have less expectations than my pointing dogs do as far as field work or field rules. I use them kind of less. So, depending on what you're looking to do with your flushing dog, but, naturally a flushing dog running in, flushing a bird, killing it and retrieving it, unless you're looking for a sit the flush dog or, that type of stuff, it's much easier to just keep going with what they're already doing naturally.
I think we all would agree, whether we want to say it out loud or not, but today's bird hunter probably needs just an English Cocker. For the country that we live in right here, this Minnesota, Wisconsin area, they're easy keepers. They're easy to train. They don't take much time. They're great house dogs. You get a little bit of a handle on them, they're going to hunt and they're going to retrieve.
mm-hmm.
Or a Lab.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna do all that stuff as long as mom and dad put it into them.
Yeah.
Back to the retrieve. I never killed a bird over rip. I never sat there and went, "Oh my gosh, hey, let's put a pigeon out there. We're gonna let it fly. Let's kill it. I want to get blood in his mouth." The reward was just him getting out there and getting it done around the birds.
We never, ever shot our pigeons. they're homers, man. They're worth their weight in gold to me.
All right. That's good information. I mean, just to know what you guys have done and
But
been through.
just make sure that we're not misunderstood. As baby puppies, they've had a ton of that kind of opportunity, like this puppy we had right here.
Yeah.
That stuff is all put in as a baby.
They've had birds in their mouth as puppies. The bird is extremely important in the puppy development. But as they go through the workouts and the course and then become a 7-8 month old dog, and now we're out maybe working wild birds, we're working on birds, killing that bird and having the dog come back. I worked on a retrieve on the course. Rip retrieves. All my pointers will water retrieve. But I worked it out here and did the Jordan Wells method of retrieve, fetch, and got it in there. Then the rest of it becomes a non-issue. They go over there and they go, hey, there's a dead bird.
That leads me to the fetch. And I feel like that deserves its an entire show. So I'm not going to dig into that. But what I will say is you have developed the Wells method of fetch. And there's been train retrieve, train fetch, whatever you want to call it, force fetch. That's if you search force fetch, you're going to get a lot of ways to train a dog to fetch. And the Wells method of fetch does not include any negative with it. Is that how do I describe that correctly?
I've eliminated the point of contact on the toe, the point of contact on the ear, and we're using the point of contact that we built in the coursework to teach the fetch. So for me, the fetch was like, for my clients, the most feared process to go through with a dog because it was very hard. And I used to ear pinch and toe hitch dogs, and it was hard on me. And then a lot of these dogs I was getting in weren't set up to go through that training mentally. They were raised by very sensitive owners, things like that. So it's like, okay, it's time to fetch your dog. This is what we're going to do. The dogs would become extremely resentful, shut down, and then the owners are like, I'm not doing this. So, when we started playing with this coursework, the light bulb was going off is that bumper is no different from getting a dog on, this cooler and stuff. And then why are we building all this success off this point of contact on the neck and then completely changing communication with the dog and confusing them with a brand new one on the ear or the toe? And all of a sudden they're like, I have no idea what that means. And it was just pain aversion, So, working that bumper through the course has eliminated the force. It's eliminated the resentment. It's eliminated time. It's just, I couldn't find like a negative about it, except for it was harder for people to do because they weren't doing the prerequisite before the fetch of building that relationship.
They didn't have obstacles created to work their dog through.
Yeah, they couldn't walk them on a lead. They couldn't get their dog to follow them around. And it's like, you're trying to do advanced stuff and, you're digging yourself a deeper hole. So the coursework leads into the fetch work.
Sure. So I think what we'll do is we'll say, grab your phone when you're done driving or when you're done watching this video here in a couple seconds and do a search for Wells method of fetch, right? You're going to find videos online that walk you through that. If you followed us this long, I hope you end up with a great bird dog. Gentlemen, we've covered a lot. From the moment we start thinking about a bird dog to the moment we bring them home and the steps along the way here. You guys have a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate you sticking with me as I try to pull out some of this information here that you have spent a combined 75 plus years of experience understanding these dogs. I can't tell you the value of your experience in being able to share that with people that might be working with their first dog or their second or third. Because again, what you guys think is just, you look at it and be like, oh, this is, he's looking at you in the eyes and he's lip curling and all that. You're just telling stuff that because you've seen it a million times. I haven't. First time for me. So I'm nervous as heck. I don't want to ruin the dog. I don't want to break something. I don't want to, have a dog that just won't hunt. I'm scared. I'm nervous. And I think that's what a lot of people are when they're searching to learn more. That's why they may have found this podcast, and that's why they may be stuck with it for the last couple hours. But if people want, obviously you guys are accessible. They can reach out to you to learn more. And again, I encourage people to go to your seminars if you have the means to do it. Make a weekend of it. Bring your wife. I think you guys still offer that option to bring a guest with too. Is that how it works?
Yeah, your spouse with you.
Bring a spouse?
Yeah.
Okay. Just having somebody on the same page in my house, understanding how to work with our dog. Daisy looks at my wife just like she looks at me and listens exactly the same way. If my wife said, I'm going to South Dakota and I'm going to go pheasant hunting, I'm taking Daisy, I'd say, good luck, have fun. But I'd be bummed that I wasn't going, obviously. But I fully trust that she would be able to handle it, handle the dog out there. And that's why I say, if you have the opportunity to learn from wise trainers and handlers like you, invest in it. It'll change the way you think about dogs for the rest of your life. It'll be easier to grasp than me trying to talk. That's really the ultimate goal. Is our goal is to teach people. That's why you guys traveled all the way over here and sat down. We're trying to teach people, trying to help people. You can only help so many people a day. Jordan, you can only help so many people a day. And so we think we're reaching, I know we've just talked to thousands of bird hunters, and I know almost every one of them has a bird dog. So I hope that we've given them some tools today. If they want more, they know where to find you guys. Okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'll just throw out there, don't be afraid to make a mistake. Dogs are pretty forgiving,
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, don't be so entitled that I'm not going to reach out, because I did, and it drove me to want to be a dog trainer. And now here I am. So, getting stuck asking for help, that's how you're going to evolve. That's how you're going to change. I still go to seminars. I still, talk to other people. I'm still interested in other training because it's that open mind that's going to allow you to be successful.
Yeah. And what you find is you start learning a lot, and then you can help other people too. I've got a bunch of neighbors with dogs, and we're talking all the time. They see mine and they're like, how do I have that? And I say, well, do you really want to get into this? And it just opens up a huge can of worms and conversation there. But it's a lot of fun. It's really powerful. And I thank you all for sharing what you've learned. We really appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed this series. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to have next week, but we will be back. Big Al, I appreciate you sticking with us over here. A shout out to Eric Noss, who came down from Canada with his puppy to help us demonstrate. Carl, who came over from Wisconsin to share the story with his German Shepherds. Yep. And for all the people that put up with you three for the last couple of hours. Thank you all. And of course, our sponsors that make the show happen. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Flush Podcast.